Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining us today. Obviously, I just wanted to get started by making sure that you're okay. I know that the coronavirus has brought about a lot of government restrictions, a lot of health concerns for a lot of people. What's the situation been like for you where you are, and how are things in the way that you're dealing with them?
Well, like I'm in Melbourne, Australia, so we they locked down things here maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. Shit, I don't know. All the days run together these days.
Right.
Maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, where they went into full lockdown. My gym that I train at's been closed for maybe 7 weeks now, 8 weeks. They made the decision to go ahead and close the gym early. Just I think just trying to get ahead of it. Just trying to do the right thing there, just because it was earlier on, when if you really think back to 8 weeks ago, nobody really knew what the hell was going on with this shit. It was, I think me and myself, I even quit, I quit going to the gym because I'd read some stuff about, while it was still open rather, because I'd read some stuff about people who were getting it and recovering, where they were coming back and their lung capacity was just completely fucked.
Right.
And
yeah.
As a fighter, being a selfish asshole, I'm like, I can't have my lungs completely screwed. So I quit going in. But I mean, now things are, I think things are starting to loosen up a little bit around the majority of Australia now. Victoria is we're lagging behind the most on that, but I reckon I think it's supposed to be May 11th. Things are going to kind of opening back up, and hopefully we can get back to life, man. It's this has been a screwy way to start off this year. I was hoping to fight 5-6 times this year.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it's definitely put a damper on things from an athletic perspective. And when you mentioned the gym you're training at, that's Absolute MMA, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because one of the ways that we actually got on this interview call was the Craig Jones match in Submission Underground, because we were talking about that crazy finish to that match. And you were saying how you've been in that position with Craig before. He's just an absolute beast on the mats. What was that kind of relationship like, training at Absolute MMA and your roles with Craig Jones?
I'll tell you what, Absolute it's been a real godsend in my career, man. When I first came out here, I was kind of thinking like the career's kind of on the backdrop. Maybe I'll start, I'll keep training just to see what happens. But God, that wasn't the case. I got out here and found this gym, and it's full of absolute killers. I mean, more so on the jiu-jitsu side of things and the sub-grappling side. But it's like you said, man. I've caught rolls with Lachlan Giles and Craig Jones and all these guys, and man, those guys. They got this whole little crew of them down in St. Kilda, which is a suburb kind of in Melbourne, and they all kind of train out of that Absolute in St. Kilda. And you walk in there, and on any given day down there, there's a bunch of dudes. They look like they just finished up their World of Warcraft game or something.
Right.
They will take your goddamn leg home with them. And it's not just that. They're not like, it's not just some gimmick. And this is the thing that really impressed me when I rolled with Craig. I've rolled with him a couple times, but the first time we rolled together, he must have tapped me about 37 times in 2 minutes. But not a single one of them was a leg attack.
Oh, right.
So I go in there expecting that I'm just gonna be getting hit with all these offshoots and all this stuff I'm not used to seeing and stuff in MMA. And it's not. It's just armbar, triangle, like just baseline stuff. It just got me. I mean, Craig is the guy's he's a true talent, and I think he's a good thing for him to have in submission grappling, because it's still kind of I think it's still a bit of a niche market, the sub grappling stuff. It hasn't quite crossed over. Is it combat sports? Is it not combat sports? It's a lot like wrestling. You remember when they were trying to do like the beat the streets and all that kind of shit, trying to get wrestling, the pro wrestling, but it was actual wrestling, and try to do all that shit. I think it's a bit of the same thing, but I think sub grappling, I think especially the guys at Submission Underground and kind of the way EBI was doing stuff too, it makes it a little bit more friendly for fans to watch. And Craig is a great guy for that shit, man. He is a talented son of a bitch. I'm pressing him, like, hey man, you want to come fight in Japan? You want to come fight in Japan? I'm sure they'd love it, bro. You want to come?
So you've been kind of pushing him a little bit more towards that MMA transition and raising RIZIN as a possible landing spot.
Hey, I'm not putting nothing out there that's not out there. But he sent me a DM after that after Satoshi or whatever, the brother grappled all 5 of those people on that last card. He's like, hey, just saying, maybe you shoot him my number. And I was like, hey, done, bro.
That would be something. I would love to see him over there in RIZIN, and obviously we love seeing you over there in RIZIN. Can you talk about what it's like competing for RIZIN in Japan? I know that's something of a dream come true for you, but what's it like on the day-to-day being a fighter with RIZIN in Japan?
It's great, man. I'm really lucky, man, that RIZIN things have worked out well for me in RIZIN, and you know, they treat me really well. I get great fights. The fans up there are insane. These are like some of the most not like, I know it's almost a cliche now where guys from the West will come over and talk about how knowledgeable and like respectful the fans are over there. But it's cliche because it's fucking true. These guys, they know what's going on. They know what's happening in the fights, and they truly don't give a shit about like if you go out, because if you go out, the thing they care about is if you go out there and you're trying to protect your record and you're trying to trying to do that, then they don't mess with you. But outside of that, they're great. And you know, it's good, man. I think pre-COVID there were some big things happening this year with RIZIN. They were gonna do some big stuff. Hopefully, I'm hearing some grumblings about July, August. We'll see what happens. I think it's all gonna be kind of pandemic dependent. But word on the street is, I know Sakaki Barra's come out and said that he wants to do some monster show in August, which would be outstanding. I would get on and smash someone's face. So
absolutely. So of course, with RIZIN not promoting events during the pandemic, I'm sure it's been kind of a difficult time as a rostered fighter with RIZIN. Were you on the card that ended up getting postponed just as things started to pick up?
Yeah, so I got the call that I wasn't going to be fighting because they were pushing back because they were holding the announcements and everything because they weren't sure what was going on. But yeah, I was keyed up to be on that card in Yokohama, and that was actually meant to be a pretty big card. Like they were gonna have some dudes on it, but it shit all just said, okay, gosh, Shingo ended up calling me. He's like, look, man, we're not sure if we're gonna be able to get you to Japan from Australia. If we get you to Australia or to Japan, are we going to be able to get you back to Australia? Because it was right when all this shit was like really starting to kick off, when countries were starting to kind of close borders and stuff. So yeah, I was booked on that one. I can't really say because the amount never got released who it was I was going to fight, and I've learned my lesson with RIZIN with saying things that haven't been reported yet.
Well, in that case, I won't push any further. I won't ask about who that was, but maybe we can talk about what the future may hold. If RIZIN does come back with that July or August card, as you were saying, that light heavyweight title is vacant. I know you've gone light heavyweight and heavyweight in the past. Is that title something that you'd be interested in?
100%, man. I'm interested in all the belts. I think I made it pretty clear to those guys that I don't care this year if I fight for the light heavyweight belt, the heavyweight belt, the open weight belt, or if they create some new weight class. I really think there's something that can be done with the kind of the sort of guys they have right now. They've got some tweeners, you know, they've got big light heavyweights and on the small end, but athletic heavyweights. And then they got like the big ass dudes that they bring in, those freak show guys.
Right.
You know, there's nothing wrong with making a little 105, 100 kg weight class. Like that, I mean, that's what they had me fight Ishii at on New Year's Eve, and it worked out great. Personally, selfishly, I felt phenomenal there. So either way, man, I reckon they got to do. They're gonna have to do something with that belt. You know, whether it be they have a one-off, or they just a one-off thing, or they do a little GP. There's some good guys, man. You know, I reckon Ivan and I are probably staring down the barrel at each other here within the end of this year. We'll end up scrapping, whether it be heavyweight, light heavyweight, work on to the two guys, I reckon. There's a kid from Africa.
Aung.
Yeah, Aung, man. So he and I were meant to fight on the New Year's Eve card. And then that got switched up and I took Ishii instead. And he's talented, man, and you know, hats off to him. I would like to fight him before he gets better. So,
right? Yeah,
you know
absolutely. So with that, the switch of the matchups there, where you ended up going to Ishii, obviously that was a phenomenal performance for you. You looked great. You took out Ishii, who's one heck of a veteran, and you did so with some style points. Was that a big switch going from Aung to Ishii, and what kind of led to that change?
You know, it was a big stylistic change for what I was getting ready for in the fight. They were totally polar opposites in their styles and like the preparedness that you would go through on it. But at the end of the day, I've gotten to kind of a point where I'll take little things for the guy that I'm doing, that I'm fighting, and incorporate them into my training. Because I've figured out over the years that if I get so focused on what the opponent is bringing to the table, I kind of get away from fighting my style and doing what I'm
Right.
doing. I think when guys they overanalyze and stuff, like there's some, I mean, it clearly works for some guys. Here are guys out of Jackson's, and those guys, they really get into the opponent and that. I mean, I used to train with Tim Kennedy quite a bit, and he was very specific on the things he did. But I always felt like for me, it kind of puts me on the back foot a bit if I'm looking, I'm trying to break stuff down, as opposed to just going out and getting a goddamn fist fight, you know.
Right.
But like, I mean, as for your question, I mean, yeah, man, that Ishii fight was great. That was a good fight. It worked out. I reckon Young probably would have put up a little bit more of a fight. I think there's nothing against Ishii, but Ishii's great when he's winning. You know what I mean? He's great when he's winning, but as soon as he's not, he doesn't really want to be there anymore. So.
Right, absolutely. And that's one of those fights where the in-cage performance obviously steals the show. But one of the things that a lot of fans gravitate towards you for is your walkouts to the ring. I know you take great pride in these. You're one of the fighters who really goes all out and puts in the effort to give a show there. The Freddie Mercury, Star-Lord. There's been a bunch of great walkouts. What goes into the perfect walkout for you? And why is why have your walkouts been so dramatic and so exciting?
Man, you know, it's I just love that they let us do it in Japan, you know, like
Yeah.
when I started watching this shit, when I started watching fighting, I started out watching Pride and like those early days back then. And, you know, there wasn't quite the spooky walkouts like they would get, like the Genki Sudos and that kind of shit at that time. But like, you know, they still, like, there was a show to it. There was a bit of flair.
Right.
And, you know, it's one thing that, like, I mean, people call me a UFC hater and all this shit, you know, I mean, call a spade, whatever. But like, I don't like how the sport has become so uniform. You know what I mean? Where there's no room for guys to have any sort of individualism or any sort of flair or anything. And it's just, you know, when I was fighting in World Series of Fighting in PFL, they wouldn't even show our walkouts. They just showed you walking right into the, like you said, you showed up in the cage. That's ridiculous, man. Like, come on, let us do a little something to sell ourselves with it. And in Japan, they love it, man. They fucking love it. They want to see dancing shit. Because at the end of the day, man, at the end of the day, this is I think this is the key thing that I love about Japan. It's fighting. At the end of the day, it's fucking entertainment.
Right.
You know what I mean? This shit is, look, there's more to life than fighting. I think everybody around the world is kind of seeing this shit right now. Like, people are dropping dead from some creepy disease. And you know, there's more to it. So while we've got the time to do this shit, we're lucky enough to be able to fight for a living. So we might as well go have some fucking fun while we're doing it. You know,
Yeah.
and I've always, and to be honest with me, it's always been a thing of the looser I am, the better I fight. So if I'm in the back, like you see a lot of guys in the back, they're just and they're fucking grunting it out, and you can tell, man, they're big balls of stress. I go out and dance my ass out to the cage. I'm loose as hell, and I'm ready to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely comes across on the screen. But given that your fighting style is so fan friendly, you love the culture and the fans of Japan, and your walkouts are so geared towards big arenas with adoring fans, how would you feel about competing in a closed door event? I know Sakakibara has been very hesitant to embrace that idea. There was a story, I believe, from AsianMMA.com where they quoted him as saying that he doesn't feel that's the way MMA is supposed to be. If the pandemic and its effects continue to linger, would you be comfortable, or would you consider it favorable to fight without the fans?
Look, I'm never going to consider it favorable. I think, especially in Japan, those fans and just that feeling. I mean, the feeling of a sold out Saitama, even though it's dead quiet in there, there's an electricity to it, and you can feel it. It kind of it gets your blood pumping. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, this is my job. I need to get paid,
Right.
and the organization needs to put on fights. And beyond that, you know what? If people are stuck at home, I really think it's a great opportunity for us to put on a show for people. You know what? Keep your asses at home. Let me put on a show. You can watch it on TV. It's cool, but you know, let's still put on a show. I mean, I don't want to come across as callous or anything, but I will admit here. Look, I was super spooked by this thing at the beginning, and like I said, I kept my ass at home. But we gotta get back to work, man. I mean, I'm in a shit scenario down here. Like in Australia, they've got everybody on this it's like a job keeper or a job seeker thing. So all Australians are getting basically $1,500 every 2 weeks to stay at home. I, as a non-Australian, get fuck all, and which is fine. I'm not looking for your free shit, but I also can't work, which means I can't take PTs at the gym, and I can't fly to Japan to fight. So it kind of puts you up shit creek. So as soon as there's an opportunity for me to get back in the ring, I'm going to take it, and whether it be in a studio with 6 people or at the Tokyo Dome, I'm gonna fight most of the way I fight. The walkout may feel a little weird dancing for just Sakakibara and some of those dudes in suits, but I'll do it, man.
Absolutely. And honestly, I think that might be even better. I know I would love watching that. But besides the point, you did say in Australia, as a non-Australian, it's a difficult situation. You're not able to work because of the coronavirus, but you're not able to get that assistance from the government. Has RIZIN done anything as far as offering to help out with the fighters? Like I know the PFL over in the States, which you were a part of with WSOF, and I believe the early iteration of PFL, correct?
Yeah, I was in with WSOF and PFL. So
right, and that promotion has done the monthly stipends. I believe Brett Okamoto of ESPN reported that was roughly $1,000 a month, but it is a stipend. Is RIZIN doing anything of that nature?
No, RIZIN, they run things a bit different there. I think I'm one of the few guys in RIZIN that has a multi-fight deal.
Okay.
I think a lot of guys are brought in. It's mercenaries. We're allowed to with clearance. A lot of guys. I believe in my new contract. Don't quote me on. Sorry, Shingo. Up until my last one, I was allowed to fight outside of RIZIN. With clearance, and they let other guys, like they let Skirlov, he can fight in RCC, things like that. So I think in an organization that's played a bit looser like that, where they want guys to get out and fight, you're just not going to see that kind of stuff coming through. But on the so that is what it is. At the end of the day, when contractors, shit happens. But I think RIZIN's going to do everything they can do to get us back in the ring rather as quick as we can, as opposed to paying us $1,000 a month and saying, here you go, guys, enjoy this. Look, man, it's great the PFL is doing that. But if you're meant to get by, if you got a contract with them where you're looking forward to making $1 million and you got a house payment and all this shit, a G a month ain't getting you anywhere. It's not a way to keep guys sorry, Ray. It's not a way to keep guys happy. I hope you're letting these guys go out and fight when this stuff's done.
Yeah, that's definitely a valid concern about the amount and that kind of a system when these fighters are expecting to fight multiple times in a year for set amounts of money. To that end, just one more question along that vein. Did RIZIN, I know that your status on the card that ended up getting postponed was a little bit murky. They weren't sure if they were going to announce it. But if that card were to be canceled, were they paying out fighters show money for that event or any reimbursement for the event being postponed?
Yeah, I didn't have anything. That's not how my contract's lined out. So it's I got a little bit of a different deal with them on some stuff. So if that I didn't show up, I don't get paid. And that's, as far as I know, that's it's pretty normal, man. Like that's the fight world that we live in right now. Whether that be fortunate or unfortunate, the fight game is not. It's not boxing. It's not the NFL. There's no such thing as a guaranteed contract, and that's the. At the end of the day, that's the world we're living in, man. It's not the easiest way to make a living sometimes, but
right.
We at the end of the day, like I get where guys are coming sometimes with a lot of this, the Ali Act and things like that. But we all knew what we were doing when we signed up to do this shit. It sucks, but yeah, it is what it is. Let's just hope these damn ventilators and things get people back on their feet. We can get back to work.
Hopefully. And of course, one name that has popped up throughout this interview is Ivan Shatirkov. Obviously, he's a big name, someone who has one loss on his record, and it was in an ill-fated attempt to move down to middleweight. This is a guy who signed with the UFC, ended up popping with USADA, signed over with RIZIN. Is that a fight that you envision is next? I know you've hinted that that's what you expect, but is that the next fight for you?
I don't reckon Ivan's next. I reckon Ivan is unless next happens to be at the Tokyo Dome or something like that, and they do a massive card like that. I reckon Ivan is Ivan's probably a guy that I'll fight coming around New Year or something like that, where it's putting the big fights together. But he's definitely the target. Man, the guy's fucking talented. I don't care what anybody says about him taking all the damn boladones and those things. the dude is a talent, and I look forward to fighting him, man. He's the dude's a monster. We shared a locker room in what would have been RIZIN 17 or something like that, and that dude is a goddamn gorilla. He's a gorilla, but he moves. He moves,
Yeah.
and he's talented, man. He's not like the typical. When you think a big musclehead like that, you think there's not a lot of mobility and things like that. He's the boy. He moves, man. He's a true talent, and he'll be a tough fight. Like you said, he's got one loss. I know the guy that he lost to. I used to train with him quite a bit.
Enomoto, right?
Yeah, Yusubi's a hell of a fighter, man. So I wouldn't cut all that down to just Ivan cutting all that.
Not.
Yeah, but yeah, man. I reckon. Here's the thing, though. Ivan's a big, scary looking dude, and he's ranked whatever he's ranked in the world. I think he's a phenomenal style matchup for me, though. So I think that's one of the ones where I've watched some things on film, and I like my odds on that one.
Right. And just to clarify with the Yusubi fight, that wasn't meant to be a disrespect. I actually got the chance, certainly, I got the chance to ask Shatirkov some questions earlier this week. It was a written interview, and I asked him about moving down in weight because, like you, he's a guy who's been at heavyweight, been at light heavyweight. He's fluctuated. And I was curious as to why he went down and whether or not that played a role in the fight. And he took absolutely nothing from Yusubi. He said, I don't blame it on the weight cut at all. I wanted to try it out. He beat me. He had the skills to beat me, and he beat me. So I just wanted to be clear there. It was certainly no disrespect. But to that end, we've talked about fighters within RIZIN that you're looking at fighting. But one of the things that makes RIZIN so unique is that you can fight outside the promotion. RIZIN co-promotes in a way that most promotions do not. Are you a fan of the co-promotion? Is there anyone that draws your eye?
Yeah, there's 6. Ryan Bader, Brandon Vera, Fedor, Mitrione, Aung Song, and Sergey Kartanov.
I'm seeing a lot of Bellator in one championship. Is there something you know about one that I don't?
No, man, I reckon the one thing won't happen, to be honest with you. There's been a lot of chat about it. They're not going to co-promote with each other. There's too much of a I mean, this is Jake just put my business hat on. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for them to co-promote. But
a bit of a turf war, right?
Yeah, 100%, exactly. Everybody's trying to be the big dick in Asia. So it's and sorry, we got that. But no, man, unfortunately they're not, those ones won't happen. But I think there's some great fights for me with the Bellator guys. Not even just those heavyweight guys I mentioned. There's God, I can't. Oh, like Liam McGeary, cats like that. There's some real good fights there. Phil Davis would be a fun fucking fight.
Wow, yeah,
fun fight. But I mean, of course, you always got a gun for the top and say Bader. Shit, Nemkov, man, that guy's a killer. Let's see if Bader gets. I think people kind of sleep on that boy a little bit. He's a fucking savage.
Yeah, and he's Fedor's protege, right?
Yeah, and I think his only loss is Jiri. Yeah, so that's not a bad loss.
Yeah, certainly not. So, I know we spoke about the title now being vacant as a result of Jiri leaving, but what was that kind of like for you as someone who's in that division to see him sign with the UFC?
Man, it's good for him. I'm happy for him. I think Jiri's on a different career trajectory than where I see myself. Jerry wants to get up there, and he wants to go do that UFC shit, man. He wants to test himself, which is fine. And I reckon he'll do pretty well. I hope the cage doesn't really screw him up too much. And kind of the style that the UFC fights is a bit different. They, it's a bit more wrestling heavy and things like that. I think as long as the UFC gives him matchups where he's not going to fight some fucking Division I All-American wrestler that all he wants to do is shoot takedowns and shit, Jerry will do well. That being said, Jerry wasn't ever a huge showman though, so he wasn't. That wasn't his gig. He came out to fight. He was real stoic and everything, so he might do all right. Whereas I put myself in that. If I were to put myself in in his boots over there, I don't want to go to the UFC, man. They're just going to dumb me down, and nobody ever going to see anything. And I can't kick people in the face on the ground.
Yeah,
like that.
Those pride rules are great.
I really truly believe. I think Jerry's gonna do really well, and I think it's gonna come as a surprise to everybody who thinks MMA equals UFC. I think guys like yourself and me and others that are a little bit more aware of like the Eastern scene are gonna be like, well, yeah, we told you he's a killer.
Right.
That won't be so surprised. But I think the more we see guys like him, I think Cape will go over and kind of make some waves as well, because he's just a tough son of a bitch. I think it's going to start opening up some eyes that, the UFC ain't the only thing out there, man. Guys need to. I hate that goddamn idea. I can't tell you how many times, like even after the Ishii fight, like I had people hit me up like, Sue, when you get signed with the UFC? And the answer is always fucking never. Like, but it's just, I don't know, man. That I feel like on the majority of my interviews now, I'm railing like this about this shit, but it's just it's upsetting, man. Like, dude, the UFC they are not the be all end all. There are guys making more money and having better fights in places like RIZIN, like Bellator, like fucking, I don't know about one, but
I definitely can see where your loyalties lie when it comes to Asian MMA. That's for sure.
I know my bread's buttered, baby.
Exactly. So just one last question before I let you go. I know we are in quarantine, but I recognize that your time is valuable, so I don't want to take up too much of it. We've talked about Shatirkov. We talked about Aung. We talked about potentially an August 8th return, maybe a July return if things clear up. And I know that you want all the gold, either weight class, both promotions, RIZIN and Bellator. If you had to call your shot, if it was up to you, what are you looking for when the ring returns?
Shit, I'm looking for. I want to get back. I want to get a fight. I'd like to get that fight that was booked originally for the Yokohama card. Bang that one out, and then hey, let's go. Let's go New Year's. Let's go October. Let's get me. I want a RIZIN belt in October, and I want that goddamn Bellator belt come New Year's Eve. So hey, Nemkov, Bader, let's get it, baby.
Jake, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for the rescheduling that we've had to do with the Twitter DMs being down right in time for our interview. But I hope that you're staying safe, and I hope that things can be resolved soon so you can get back to doing what you love.
Cheers, brother, man. Thanks again.